I was out on the street passing out flyers when I spotted my girlfriend, Sophie, making out with Henry, the campus heartthrob, in a flashy sports car. Her clothes were a mess, and the whole scene was anything but innocent. I tapped on the car. Window. Henry glanced at Sophie and asked, "Who's that?" Sophie, still in his arms, smirked and said, "Just some pathetic loser. If you want, I'll dump him right now." She kissed him again, then got out of the car without even looking at me, and walked away. Henry licked his lips where Sophie had just kissed him and sneered, "Beat it, dude. A beauty like her only goes for guys who can handle her." I stayed calm and asked, "I couldn't care less about the girlfriend, but tell me, why are you sitting in my car?" The smug look on his face vanished. He stared at me, confused. "What do you mean, your car?" I opened the glove compartment and pulled out the registration. "See this? My name's on it." "So, what exactly are you doing in my car? Planning to steal it? Should I call the cops?" Henry's face turned beet red. I scrambled out of the car, stammering, "Don't call the police. My dad owns a repair shop. I saw this car parked there and thought it looked cool, so I just borrowed it for a drive. Please don't report me." I raised my voice. "Borrowed? This is stealing. Since when does a repair shop let people take customers' cars for joyrides? Hanging." His head, he mumbled, "I'm sorry, man." I sighed, trying to keep my composure. "Let's check the car for damage first." He stayed quiet while I inspected it. Sure enough, the hood had a noticeable dent. I glared at him. "What happened here?" He panicked and blurted out, "It wasn't me. Your girlfriend sat on the hood to take selfies. She even posted them all over her social media. There's your proof." I pulled out my phone to check, but her posts were nowhere to be found. Henry handed me his phone. "She blocked you. Look at my feed." Sure enough, there it was. Photos of Sophie posing provocatively on the hood of my car, captioned with suggestive emojis. I smirked. "Well, these photos will make great evidence. You two better get ready for a court summons." Henry's face turned pale. "How much will this cost me?" I shrugged. "Probably around $15,000. His jaw dropped. "But it was her who caused the damage. Why do I have to pay?" I rolled my eyes. "You don't know how the law works, huh? You were both involved. So you're both responsible. Looks like your dad's repair shop won't be making a profit this year." The so-called campus heartthrob, a grown man, burst into tears. That stupid girl. I told her this car had a carbon fiber hood. High-end cars like this need to warm up before you can sit on them. But no, she jumped on it right away to take her stupid selfies. My parents worked so hard, and now I'm screwed because of her. I climbed into my car and called an appraiser to assess the damage. I didn't have the patience to keep listening to him cry. As I was about to roll up the window, he wailed, "Why are you the rich one? Sophie said you were just some poor loser handing out flyers for a living." I glanced at him. I wasn't handing out flyers for someone else. Those businesses on Main Street, they're mine. I was promoting my own stores. He was speechless. I shut the window, cutting him off mid-sob. Right then, Sophie texted me. "So you saw everything. Let's break up." "Oh, don't blame me." "It's not my fault your parents couldn't give you a better life. I'd rather cry in a Lamborghini than laugh on your bicycle." I paused to think. Since I own both the Lamborghini and the bicycle, should she be crying or laughing? I decided to reply, with "See you in court," but when I tried to send the message, I realized she had already blocked me. Seriously, she blocked me. The audacity. She owes me $10,000 for the repairs. Furious, I stormed into her dorm building. I didn't care that. It was the women's dorm. I was getting my money. It was mid-morning, so most of the students were in class. The dorm was quiet as I made my way to her room. Just as I raised my hand to knock, I heard voices from inside. "Did you really do what I told you to?" a girl asked. Sophie replied, "Yeah. I told him I was on birth control." The other girl sounded excited. "Good. I tracked your ovulation. This is the perfect time. If you get pregnant, you'll secure a future with him. Once you're pregnant, he won't have a choice. We'll be in the family for good." Sophie hesitated. "But what if he forces me to get an abortion?" The other girl scoffed. "Don't worry. You're pregnant. We'll make sure he takes responsibility. You already dumped your boyfriend for him. He wouldn't dare refuse." I stood frozen outside the door, stunned. Sophie wasn't just cheating. She was planning to trap Henry with a baby too. Marry into a wealthy family? And she still felt so confident about her plan, even after finding out the car he drove was mine. I knocked on the door. When Sophie opened it and saw me, her face twisted in annoyance. We already broke up. Why are you here? Listen, being poor is one thing, but being poor and shamelessly clingy is just disgusting. She clearly thought I was there to beg for her back. Her two roommates, one of whom I recognized as her best friend. Jenna, who had been egging her on, stood behind her, glaring at me. Before I could respond, Jenna snapped, "Stop standing in the way of Sophie's happiness. Let her live her best life." I stared at them, dumbfounded. Since when was cheating in someone else's car considered pursuing happiness? Back when Sophie and I first started dating, she always made snide comments. She'd say things like, "If a guy truly loves a girl, you can tell by how much he spends on her." It didn't help that her best friend, Jenna, constantly encouraged that mindset. Because of Jenna's influence, I had spent a lot on Sophie. Gifts, dinners, you name it. But today, I wasn't here to win her back. I was here to take back what was mine. I said calmly, "Fine, we can break up. But that phone you're using? I bought it. You should return it to me." I didn't mention the Lamborghini.
Ow.
Knowing Sophie, she'd find a way to cling to me if she knew the car was mine. For now, my priority was to get my things back. Sophie frowned, her tone icy. "Wow, you're really that petty? Can't you think about my feelings for once?" I stared at her, speechless. It wasn't about being petty. She had betrayed me. Why would I care about her feelings? Jenna, standing nearby, suddenly laughed and covered her mouth. "Sophie, don't you see his game? Doesn't really care about the phone. He's just making up excuses so you'll feel bad and stay with him." Sophie smirked. "Oh, I get it now. No. Think I can't break up because I won't give you back the phone, right? Well, let me remind you. I'm with someone rich now. Giving back a phone is nothing to me." She lifted her chin proudly. Jenna chimed in. "Girl, don't let this loser intimidate you." I looked up the price of the campus Heartthrob's Lamborghini. It's worth millions. Buying you a new phone would be pocket change for him. Sophie chuckled. "Fine, I'll give you your phone back. But let me make one last call. I'll show you why I'm leaving you for someone way out of your league." Figured she was talking about Henry. Funny, when I dropped my car off at his dad's repair shop, his dad had complained about struggling to afford rent. Sophie dialed his number, and Jenna urged her, "Put it on speaker. Let him hear the difference between a real man and a broke one." Sophie nodded, clearly eager to show off. She turned on the speakerphone. The moment the call connected, Sophie's voice turned soft and sweet. "Babe, my ex is here trying to make me give back the phone he bought me. Without it, how will I contact you?" But instead of sympathy, Henry's voice roared through the speaker. "You crazy bee asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Don't you dare call me again. If I ever see you, I'll beat the crap out of you." The line went dead. Sophie and Jenna were stunned. For a moment, no one spoke. Jenna was the first to recover. Furious, she grabbed a book from her bed and hurled it at me. "This is your fault. You must have said something about her behind her back." Sophie's face turned red with anger. "Yeah, he wasn't like this before. You must have trashed me to him. You're disgusting." I sighed, exasperated. "I didn't say a word about you. Just give me my stuff back," Sophie shouted. "If he didn't badmouth me, why would he treat me like this?" I rolled my eyes. It wasn't rocket science. Sophie's photos of her posing provocatively on the hood of my car had caused thousands of dollars in damage. Henry, who borrowed the car from his dad's shop, was now saddled with debt. Of course, he was furious, Jenna sneered. "See, Sophie, this is why I told you to go for Henry. I could tell this guy was a spineless coward who'd only played dirty behind. You're back. He's pathetic." I turned to her. "So you encouraged her to cheat on me?" "You're admitting it?" Jenna rolled her eyes. "Cheating, please. I was helping my best friend escape a dead-end relationship. What kind of friend would let her marry someone like you? She'll thank me for this someday." Sophie crossed her arms impatiently. "Fine, you can have the phone back. But I have one condition. You go apologize to Henry, admit you lied about me, and clear my name, Jenna added. Yeah, even if you have to get on your knees and beg. You owe Sophie an apology. I took the phone from Sophie's hand and said, I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do, and we're not done here. I want everything else you owe me. I walked into the room, sat at her desk, and started calculating. Gifts, money transfers, everything I had ever given her during our relationship. Sophie protested. My friends are here. Do you really have? To humiliate me like this? We were in love once. Ain't you let me keep my dignity? Ignoring her, I kept adding up the numbers. Jenna snapped a picture of me and smirked. Wow, I've never seen a more pathetic man. I'm posting this to my story so everyone knows how disgusting you are. I thought she was bluffing until I checked. My phone, sure enough, she had posted my photo with the caption, Ladies, beware of broke guys. The poorer they are, the more entitled they feel. My bestie's ex is harassing her right now. So creepy. I frowned and said, Why do you keep throwing around words like poor and rich and a personal matter between us? You might as well tattoo gold digger on your forehead, Jenna smirked. Yeah, I'm a gold digger. It's what? Do you even have the right to criticize me? If you were rich, you'd be the one lecturing me right now, not the other way around. At you, what have you accomplished? She got more heated as she spoke and walked over to the window, pointing outside. Rich men drive Lamborghinis worth millions, focused on their careers and ambitions. Meanwhile, broke losers like you sit here doing math, making the girls who once loved them feel sick. Another roommate finally spoke up, clearly uncomfortable. Sophie, maybe you should just pay him back. You were in the wrong here. Sophie's face darkened. What's that supposed to mean? Are you taking his side now? Jenna jumped in immediately, her voice dripping with mockery. It's obvious, isn't it? She's jealous. You've got a boyfriend with a Lamborghini and she can't stand it, so she's trying to undermine you. The roommate's face turned red. You're making things up. That's not true. I knew this girl. Her name was Sarah. She was a scholarship student from a low-income family. I remembered her because once Sophie had asked me to buy desserts for everyone in her dorm to show off. Sarah was the only one who refused, saying she didn't want to accept something she hadn't earned. That left a strong impression on me. Sophie sighed dramatically. Sarah, I know you've had it hard. You're here on student loans and scholarships. I get that you resent rich people, but you know what's more important than grades? Character. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. Are you saying I don't have character? I blinked, stunned. Sarah was one of the most hardworking, self-respecting people I knew in Sophie. Sophie had just been making out with another guy in my car while I was still technically her boyfriend. And she thought Sarah was the one lacking character. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep calm. The entire scene was spiraling into something surreal. My ex-girlfriend, the same person who shamelessly made out with another guy on the hood of my car, now stood in front of me, throwing moral accusations at one of the few decent people in the room. I took a deep breath and stood up slowly, still holding the phone she had returned to me. Sarah's face was flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and frustration. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not in a confrontation like this. Sophie was enjoying every second of the drama, clearly assuming she still had the upper hand. Sophie, I said slowly, keeping my voice measured. You talk about character, but you lied about being on birth control to trap someone you barely know into a relationship. You cheated on me using my car. You damaged that car and tried to shift the blame. Now you're humiliating the only person in this room who hasn't wronged anyone. Sophie's smug expression faltered for just a moment. Jenna scoffed and crossed her arms. Whatever. You act like you're some saint. You think listing receipts makes you the good guy? I turned to her. No, but at least I'm honest. If Sophie wants to talk about character, she should know that it's not built on manipulation and lies. Jenna rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath, but I ignored it. Instead, I turned to Sarah. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, I said to her sincerely. You didn't deserve that. Sarah looked surprised but nodded slowly. Thanks, she said quietly. Sophie threw her hands in the air. So now you're flirting with my roommate? You're pathetic? I narrowed my eyes. You dumped me, remember? You made your choices. I'm here to collect what I'm owed, not play games. She groaned dramatically and went to her closet, pulling out a small box. Fine, take your stuff. Just get out of my life already. I opened the box. Inside were a few watches I had given her, some cologne I knew she never used, and a necklace I had bought for our anniversary that she wore exactly once. Notably missing were the designer handbag I had bought her for her birthday and the laptop she used every day, which I had also paid for. This isn't everything, I said. Sophie shrugged. That's all you're getting. Jenna smirked. Unless you want to sue us for emotional damage, too. I nodded slowly, making a mental note of everything she still owed me. Actually, I just might. You wouldn't dare, Sophie hissed. I gave her a long look. I would, and I will. Jenna made a disgusted sound. You're so vindictive? No, I said, stepping toward the door. I'm just done letting people walk all over me. As I turned to leave, Sarah spoke again. Wait, I stopped. Sarah walked over to her desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small envelope. I know this isn't my place, but I found this under Sophie's bed last week. I wasn't sure what it was at first, but now I think it might matter. She handed it to me. I opened the envelope and pulled out a receipt. It was from a hotel near campus, dated 3 weeks before our breakup. Sophie had paid in cash, but she had written her name in the guest section and the other guest, Henry. My jaw tightened. So they had been seeing each other even longer than I'd thought. I looked up at Sophie, who looked like she'd been slapped. You went to a hotel with him before you even dumped me? I asked. Sophie crossed her arms defensively. So what? Over you and Henry made me feel special. Special, he echoed. He screamed at you on the phone 5 minutes ago. Jenna stepped in. That's because you poisoned him against her. I held up the receipt. This is what poisoned your perfect fantasy. You and Henry are just two selfish people who used each other until things went bad. That has nothing to do with me. I turned. To leave again? Sophie's voice rang out behind me. You think you're better than us? Just because you're rich? I didn't turn around. No, I think I'm better because I don't pretend to be someone I'm not. I left the dorm room and walked down the hallway. The moment the door shut behind me, I let out a long breath. The encounter had left me drained, but also strangely lighter. It felt like a chapter of my life had closed, and we're trying to prove myself to someone who never really saw me. I drove back to my office and spent the rest of the afternoon calculating the full amount Sophie owed me. The total came out to nearly $12,000, excluding the car repairs. I printed everything out, called my lawyer, and filed a small claims case against her. I included the photo evidence from her social media, the repair invoice, the receipt from the hotel, and all the bank transfers I had made to her during our relationship. I didn't expect to get the full amount back, and I wanted to make a statement that her actions had consequences and I wasn't someone to mess with. The next day, something strange happened. Sarah stopped by my store. She looked nervous, but determined. I wanted to apologize, she said. For what? I asked, genuinely confused. For not speaking up sooner. I saw things, the way she talked. About you behind your back, how Jenna encouraged it. I thought it wasn't my place, but maybe if I had said something earlier, ... I shook my head. You don't owe me anything. If anything, you were one of the few people who treated me with basic respect. She smiled shyly. Still, I wanted you to know. I always thought you deserved better. Her words hit me deeper than I expected. Thanks, I said. That means more than you know. We stood in silence for a few seconds before she added, Also, I'm studying marketing. If you ever need help promoting your businesses, I'd be happy to volunteer. I raised an eyebrow. You're offering to help me for free? She shrugged. I need experience, and you seem like someone worth learning from. I chuckled. Deal, but I'll still pay you. She blinked in surprise. Really? Yeah, I don't believe in free labor, especially not from good people. We shook hands. That was how Sarah became my intern, and eventually much more. Meanwhile, Sophie and Jenna had no idea that their attempts to mock and humiliate me were doing the opposite. The photo Jenna had posted of me doing math at the dorm desk, it went viral on campus. People started jokingly calling me the accountable ex. Others pointed out how refreshing it was to see someone calmly collect evidence and pursue legal action instead of lashing out emotionally. Even the local newspaper picked it up with the headline, "Student entrepreneur files lawsuit against cheating ex and wins public support." Sophie tried to do damage control, but it was too late. Her reputation on campus plummeted. Her new relationship with Henry never even got off the ground. His father found out about the stunt with the car and grounded him from all social activity. Until graduation. As for Jenna, her post was flagged for harassment and she was temporarily banned from social media. I didn't rejoice. I didn't gloat. I just moved forward. By the end of the semester, I had opened a third shop. Sarah helped me create a new social media campaign that brought in even more customers. And one night, as we sat eating takeout on the office floor, she said softly, "You know, you could have torn them apart publicly, but you didn't." Why? I thought for a moment. Because revenge fades, but building something good lasts. She smiled at me, and I knew that maybe, just maybe, I had found the right person this time. And she didn't need a Lamborghini to love me. She just needed me to be real. And I was finally ready to be that. The small claims court hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. I wasn't expecting Sophie to show up, but she did, wearing sunglasses. Indoors, arms crossed, and flanked by Jenna, who kept looking around like the courtroom was a stage and she was the star. Sophie tried to downplay everything, claiming the money I gave her was voluntary and that we had no official agreement. But I had brought everything: bank transfers marked with notes like "for your tuition," receipts for expensive gifts, photos of her on my car, the invoice for repairs, and even screenshots of Henry's confession. I kept calm throughout the whole process, answering the judge's questions with precision. Sophie's defense was full of holes. Jenna, acting as some kind of personal lawyer, kept whispering in her ear and scoffing whenever I spoke. When the judge asked if Sophie had any written proof that the money I gave her was a gift with no expectations, she faltered. "It was understood," she said lamely. The judge didn't buy it. In the end, the ruling was in my favor. Sophie was ordered to pay back $10,500 and Jenna's social media post was deemed defamation. The court gave me the green light to pursue additional damages if I wanted to. I declined. I had made my point. Sophie looked stunned when the verdict was read. Jenna hissed something under her breath, and they both stormed out of the courtroom. I stood for a moment, letting it sink in. I wasn't happy exactly, but I felt grounded, vindicated. Outside the courtroom, Sarah was waiting for me. She had come for moral support. "How did it go?" she asked as I walked down the steps. "I won." She smiled. "I had a feeling you would." We went out for coffee afterward. Sarah talked about her plans for the summer. She wanted to stay in the city and take extra classes, maybe even intern full-time with me if I had the room. Told her I'd make the room. That night, I found myself lying in bed, thinking about how much had changed in just a few weeks. Sophie's betrayal used to be the first thing I thought of in the morning and the last thing on my mind at night. But now it barely hurt. It was just a thing that happened, like a storm that passed. And what it left behind wasn't destruction, but clarity. Meanwhile, Jenna didn't take the court ruling well. She began posting vague messages online about certain exes who couldn't move on, and men who weaponized kindness to play the victim. None of them mentioned me directly, but the timing was obvious. She also made a series of TikToks talking about emotional vampires and toxic generosity. In one of them, she reenacted our courtroom scene with a friend playing me dressed in a trash bag. At first, I was tempted to clap back, but I didn't. I focused on work. I opened my fourth location, a smoothie bar, near the campus gym, and launched a new loyalty program designed by Sarah. Business boomed, but Jenna didn't stop. She leaked parts of our court documents, twisted the story, and told people I sued. My ex for being broke? I was painted as a cruel opportunist who crushed his girlfriend just because she moved on? That's when the tipping point came. One of my regular customers, a law student named Andre, saw one of Jenna's posts and commented with the court's public record link. He wrote, "Full case file is online." This guy didn't sue over heartbreak, sued over fraud and damage, and he won. Not everything is about love drama. Sometimes it's about accountability. It went viral. Within 24 hours, my business's social media pages were flooded with support. People posted messages like "Justice for the quiet ones" and "We need more men like this, calm, composed, and principled." The photo Jenna had once mocked at me calculating receipts at Sophie's dorm was reposted under the caption, "This is what emotional maturity looks like." I received interview requests. A local influencer reached out to feature me in a podcast about small business resilience. I agreed. In the podcast, I spoke candidly, not about the betrayal, but about boundaries. "People think revenge is loud," I said into the mic. "But sometimes it's just not letting someone walk away with what isn't theirs. Sometimes it's telling yourself you deserve better and backing that up with action." The episode got over 300,000 streams. My businesses saw a noticeable bump in traffic. Sarah came by after class one day, holding 2 ice creams. "You're trending again?" she said, handing me one. "Yeah, I noticed."
"Oh, think I should lean into it?"
She laughed.
Maybe a little, but don't.
"Lose yourself in it." I nodded. "I won't. I know what matters now," and I did. One day, weeks later, I ran into Henry again, not at school, but at his dad's repair shop. I had brought my car in for routine maintenance. He saw me and froze, clearly unsure whether to say something. Eventually, he walked over. I never apologized," he muttered, "for everything. Taking your car, letting her use me, screaming at her like that. I was angry, but it wasn't right." I studied him. He looked different, less smug, more tired, like someone who'd been forced to grow up fast. "You didn't lie," I said. "She did. I'm not excusing the rest, but you're not the only one she manipulated." He looked down. "Still, I lost a lot. My dad almost fired me. My friends don't talk to me. Turns out being the heartthrob doesn't mean much when you're just an idiot in real life." I offered a half smile. "We've all been idiots. The real question is what we do after." He nodded. "You dating anyone?" I blinked at the sudden shift. He chuckled awkwardly. "Sorry, just people are. Saying you and that quiet girl, Sarah, seemed close." I shrugged. "We're building something. No rush. Just taking things one step at a time." Henry gave a slow nod. "Good for you." Then he walked back inside. A few days later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Sophie. She didn't apologize. Instead, she wrote a full page accusing me of turning the campus against her, weaponizing money, and humiliating a woman just trying to survive. I read the whole thing in silence, then folded it up and threw it away. It didn't matter anymore. One evening, Sarah and I sat on the rooftop of one of my cafes, looking out at the city. The sun was setting, the sky painted in shades of gold and orange. She turned to me and said, "Do you ever regret it? Not just walking away quietly?" I thought about it for a long moment. No, because walking away quietly is what I always did before. And people like Jenna and Sophie, they count on that. They expect you to stay quiet. They build entire lives around the idea that no one will call them out. But not this time. She nodded. "Good." I looked at her. "What about you? Any regrets?" She smiled. "Only that I didn't speak up sooner, but I think I found my voice now." We sat there, letting the silence stretch. The past few months had tested me. I had learned that love without respect is just illusion, that betrayal can be a beginning, not just an end. That strength doesn't always roar. It sometimes just signs. A court form prepares a spreadsheet and waits. And that sometimes healing comes not from forgetting, but from standing up and saying, "No more." I glanced at Sarah again. Maybe healing also came from starting again with someone who saw you clearly. Not for your car, not for your money, not for what you could give, but for who you were when the noise faded. And I was finally becoming that person. The end of the semester arrived sooner than expected. Students were packing their things, booking bus and train tickets, and saying emotional goodbyes. I stayed mostly quiet during that time, observing. There was something oddly peaceful about watching others move on while I stood still, calm in the eye of a storm that had already passed. Sarah had decided to stay for the summer and take up my offer to intern full-time at my businesses. Settled into a comfortable rhythm, she handled marketing campaigns, customer engagement, and even supplier negotiations with a sharpness that surprised me. For someone still in college, I found myself trusting her with more than just tasks. Her presence brought a sense of quiet confidence, a reassurance that not everything in life had to be dramatic to be meaningful. One afternoon, we were reorganizing inventory in one of the downtown shops when she turned to me, holding a box of branded mugs. "I got a message last night from Sophie," she said almost casually. I paused, setting down a box of tea tins. "What did she say?" "She wanted me to help her fix her reputation. Said I was well-liked now, and that maybe if I made a public post defending her, people would stop hating her." I raised an eyebrow. She also said Jenna was losing followers fast and blaming her for the fallout. That made me chuckle. Poetic justice. Sarah hesitated. I didn't respond. "Should I have?" I shook my head. "You don't owe her anything." She nodded and returned to stacking mugs. But something about the tension in her shoulders told me the situation had stirred something in her. Later that night, as we were locking up, she finally said what was on her mind. "I used to be like Sophie, not in behavior, but in silence. I used to let people like her run the show because it was easier to stay out of it. But I kept thinking, if no one ever stands up, people like that just keep winning." I leaned against the storefront window. "I get it. I used to be silent too. That's how I ended up getting cheated on with someone sitting in my car." She smiled faintly. "And now I speak." We walked in silence for a bit, heading toward the nearby coffee shop that had become our post-shift ritual. As we crossed the intersection, a sleek red car turned onto the road and slowed beside us. The passenger window rolled down, revealing Jenna. She was alone. "You've got some nerve," she said, her voice bitter, acting like the hero when you're just a glorified accountant. Hi, Jenna. Still narrating your life like it's a reality show? Don't flatter yourself. I just came to tell you Sophie's gone. Said she couldn't stand the humiliation anymore. I blinked, genuinely surprised. Transferred. Yep, took a leave of absence. Her parents are furious. Apparently, she moved back home and is thinking about rebranding as a lifestyle influencer. Sarah muttered, "A what?" Jenna laughed, but there was no real humor in it. "You think you won? Is that it? You ruined her. You turned everyone against her. I hope you're proud." "I didn't ruin her," I said calmly. "She did that herself." Jenna's smile twisted. "You think people admire you because you filed a lawsuit and posted a few spreadsheets? You're just another guy trying to look noble after getting dumped?" Sarah stepped forward then, voice sharp. "He wasn't dumped. He was used, lied to, cheated on. And instead of retaliating like some bitter teenager, he handled it like an adult." Jenna's face flushed. "Oh, please. You're just saying that because you're trying to be the next girl in his passenger seat?" Sarah didn't flinch. "No, I'm saying it because it's the truth. And maybe if you listened more instead of talking over everyone, you wouldn't have lost all your friends." Jenna's jaw tightened. Without another word, she rolled up the window and sped off. We stood in the silence she left behind. Then Sarah said, "That felt good." I chuckled. "You were great." She shrugged, a smile tugging at her lips. "You helped me find my voice." We kept walking. Right. Later that night, I found myself going through old photos on my phone, not out of nostalgia, but to clear storage. There were so many pictures of Sophie. At restaurants, opening gifts, posing with coffee cups I had paid for. But what struck me most was that in almost every photo, I was behind the camera. I was always the one giving, offering, recording, never the one receiving. I deleted them all. The next morning, I launched a new marketing campaign with Sarah's help, Accountable Coffee. We branded it with a simple message: respect yourself, respect others. The launch was a hit. Students who had followed the drama recognized the name and shared it as a subtle nod to standing up for yourself. One customer wrote, "Came here for the memes. Stayed for the message." Business kept growing. I received a call from a small venture capital firm that had seen our numbers and wanted to talk investment. It was surreal. Only months ago I had been standing outside in the cold, handing out flyers. Now I was fielding funding offers. Even as everything grew, I stayed grounded. One evening, Sarah and I took a walk through campus. It was nearly empty. Most students had gone home. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the courtyard. "Do you ever think," she said, "how different things might have been if Sophie hadn't cheated?"
I thought.
About it. Yeah, probably would have kept living in a fantasy, believing someone loved me for who I was, not what I could give. She nodded. "You ever think you'll trust someone again?" "I'm already doing that," I said. She looked up at me, her eyes soft. "Really?" "Yeah," I said, "with you." She looked away, suddenly shy. "You know, I didn't believe people like you existed. It's kind, but assertive, forgiving, but not weak. And I didn't think I'd meet someone who made me feel like I didn't have to prove myself." "Every second," I replied. We didn't kiss. There was no dramatic music or flash of lightning. But in that moment, something shifted. Not everything begins with a spark. Some things begin with a quiet truth, earned, not given. And that night, I realized this was more than healing. It was becoming whole. Summer arrived slowly in waves of warmth and long golden evenings. The city settled into a different rhythm. Slower, quieter, more personal.
Ow.
My shops were thriving. The accountability campaign, once launched as a small idea born from heartbreak, had taken on a life of its own. Students started posting pictures with our branded mugs. A professor even asked if I could give a guest lecture about entrepreneurship and ethical branding. I accepted. Sarah had transitioned from intern to manager of operations. She was efficient, organized, and always 2 steps ahead of what I needed. But more than that, she became a constant, a presence that calmed the noise. One Thursday morning, while we were setting up a new inventory system in the flagship shop, she asked, "Do you still think about her?" The question came softly, with no judgment, just curiosity. "Sophie?" I asked, glancing over. She nodded. I paused. "Sometimes, but not in the way I used to. I think about who I was when I was with her, how small I let myself become." Sarah leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "You know, it's weird. I used to look up to girls like Sophie. They seemed so confident, like they always got what they wanted." "They do," I said, "until what they want changes too fast for anyone to keep up." She smiled faintly. "You know what I've realized? Real confidence doesn't need witnesses." I watched her for a moment, then returned to my laptop, but her words lingered in the air between us. That weekend, something unexpected happened. Sophie's mother walked into the cafe. I recognized her immediately. Hair perfectly blown out, pearls around her neck, phone in hand like it was part of her skin. She scanned the shop and locked eyes with me. I stood slowly. "Can I help you?" She pursed her lips. "You're the boy, the one who sued my daughter." I stayed calm. "Yes, I'm also the one she cheated on, defamed online, and stole from." "Do you need a drink?" She blinked, caught off guard by the tone. "No, I came to speak, then speak." She cleared her throat. "Sophie is not doing well. She dropped out. She barely leaves the house. And you?" Her voice wavered. "You somehow turned the campus against her." "I didn't turn anyone against her," I said. "She did that with her choices. She's young. She made mistakes." "We all did," I replied. "But some of us face them. Others try to manipulate their way out." She frowned. You don't understand, her father left years ago. I did everything I could to raise her on my own. She learned to survive. Maybe sometimes that meant lying or taking advantage, but I raised a hand. That's not survival. That's selfishness. You're still defending it. She went quiet for the first time. She looked tired. I softened slightly. I don't hate Sophie, but I don't excuse her either. I want her to get better, but I won't pretend she didn't hurt people. Her shoulders slumped. Do you think she could apologize? I tilted my head. To me, maybe. But the apology that really matters is to herself. She left without ordering anything. Later that night, Sarah and I were closing up the shop. I told her what happened. She listened silently. She won't change, Sarah said finally. Not until she stops blaming everyone else. I know. There was a long pause. Then she asked, do you still feel anything for her? I looked at her. The way I used to. I think I was more in love with the idea of who I thought she could become. Sarah smiled gently. And who are you now? It was a good question, one I had been asking myself lately. Someone who finally stopped trying to prove his worth to the wrong people, I said. Someone who found peace in being quiet, but still heard. She nodded, and we fell into comfortable silence again. By mid-July, something surprising began to happen. Emails, messages, handwritten letters, dozens of them. They came from other students, men and women, who had been in situations similar to mine. Some had been manipulated, some betrayed, some financially taken advantage of by partners or friends. But all of them shared one thing. They had stayed silent, convinced that if they fought back, they'd be labeled petty or bitter. I began posting some of their stories, anonymously with their consent, under a new page on our website titled The Ledger, Stories of Boundaries and Balance. It went viral within days. One woman wrote, I left a 5-year relationship where I paid for everything, even his gambling debt. But when I asked for fairness, I was called ungrateful. Your story helped me realize I'm not crazy. Another, I never sued my ex, but after reading what you did, I confronted her about the money she owed me. She paid. Sometimes just seeing someone stand up is enough to remind us we can too. The page became more than just a campaign, it became a quiet revolution, and I was proud of that. One day, Sarah stayed late with me after closing. We were sitting behind the counter eating pizza from a local joint. She said, you're the first person who's ever believed in me without asking for something in return. Looked at her genuinely curious. No one ever saw what you're capable of. She laughed softly. It was the poor girl, the scholarship girl. People saw my grades, not my value. You saw both. I reached across the counter and took her hand. You gave me back my voice, I said. She didn't respond, just squeezed my hand back. And that was enough. A few days later, I received another message, this time from Henry. He wanted to meet. Curious, I agreed. What? We sat across from each other at a diner near campus. You don't owe me anything, he began. But I want to say something, I nodded. Go ahead. I sold the car, he said. The one I borrowed from the shop. My dad didn't want it on the lot anymore. Too much bad blood. Makes sense. I also started therapy. That surprised me. He looked embarrassed. I realized I had been coasting through life, using my looks, my charm, never really being accountable. He forced me to look in the mirror. I studied him for a moment. I'm glad it happened. He offered a small smile. Me too. He stood to leave, then turned back. If you and Sarah ever get married, invite me. I owe her an apology too. Deal, I said with a smirk. Time passed. The summer began to fade. Students returned. The city's heartbeat picked up again, and in the center of it all, my shop stood. Stronger than ever. What had begun as a personal mission had grown into something meaningful for many. But more importantly, so had I no longer needed revenge. I no longer needed to explain myself. I had peace, and I had Sarah. One night, after a long day of meetings and deliveries, we sat on the rooftop of my original store, watching the stars. She leaned her head on my shoulder. So what comes next? I looked out over the city. Whatever we want, she smiled. I liked the sound of that. And I meant it. Because after everything, I had learned the greatest lesson of all. Losing someone who never saw your worth isn't a tragedy. It's freedom. And from freedom, we build everything else. The fall semester began with a scent of renewal. Leaves turned, golden and brittle. The campus bloomed with movement again. Students dragging suitcases, laughter echoing between the buildings, the hum of new beginnings everywhere. But something had changed. Not just in the city, not just in the business. In me, the boy who once handed out flyers on a cold street corner, watching his girlfriend kiss another man in his own car, was long gone. In his place stood someone who had learned not just to speak up, but to value silence when it meant peace. In early September, I was invited to give a talk during freshman orientation. The theme was personal integrity in business. The dean said my story had become a quiet legend on campus. Whispers of the student who sued his cheating ex and turned his pain into 4 profitable storefronts. In a community movement. I accepted. Sarah helped me prepare. She always brought clarity where I brought instinct. We stayed late one night, sitting across from each other at the counter of the flagship cafe, organizing slides and key points. "You're not nervous?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, I'm not performing. I'm telling the truth." She smiled at that. The auditorium was full the day I spoke, more than I expected. Faculty, students, even a few familiar faces I hadn't seen in months. I scanned the crowd and noticed Henry near the back, arms crossed, but nodding along. A few chairs over was Andre, the law student who'd once posted my court case link. I even saw Sarah's old roommate, Sarah herself, sitting front row, phone off, attention fully locked on me. I took a breath and began. "I'm not here to tell you how to make money," I said, "or how to build a business. You can learn that anywhere. I'm here to tell you how to protect yourself, your time, your energy, your peace." I told them about Sophie. Not her name, but the patterns, about giving too much, about mistaking silence for maturity and generosity for a reason to be stepped on. I told them about the court case, about the receipts, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the car. They laughed in the right places, grew quiet in the serious ones. And then I said the biggest lesson I learned wasn't about law or business. It was about love. I learned that love, without respect, is just control. And that if someone only values you for what you provide, not for who you are, you owe them nothing. When I stepped down from the stage, the applause was long, and I didn't need it, but I appreciated it. Sarah met me outside the auditorium afterward. "You killed it," she said. "You think so?" She grinned. "Definitely, and you made a few people cry. Even Henry. I think I saw him tear up, but maybe it was the lighting." We both laughed. That night we walked home together. The air had that early autumn bite, just enough to make her lean a little closer as we crossed the street. "Do you ever think," she asked, "that if none of that had happened, you and Sophie, the lawsuit, the fallout, do you think we would have met like this?" I thought for a moment. "I think we might have crossed paths, but I wouldn't have seen you. Not clearly. I was too busy trying to be seen by people who didn't care." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I'm glad you see me now." I took her hand. "I do, and I'm not looking anywhere else." Later that month, Sophie reached out. Not a message, not a phone call, a letter. It was handwritten. Neat. Folded carefully and left at the front desk of the flagship shop. I opened it alone. It didn't begin with, "I'm sorry." It began with, "I'm tired." She wrote about how her social circle collapsed after the court case. How brands that once sent her free clothes stopped returning her emails. How her parents pushed her to restart, but she didn't know where to begin. She wrote, "I blamed you for a long time. I told myself you were vindictive, let you ruin me, but I know now I ruined myself. Just stop letting me take from you." At the end, she wrote, "I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I hope you understand that I see you now. Really, see you, and I'm sorry it took losing everything for that to happen." I folded the letter and put it in the drawer with the other documents. Not out of sentiment, but closure. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need reconciliation, just truth, and I had that. By October, we opened our 5th location, a concept store combining a bookstore with a cafe. Sarah curated the first shelf, nonfiction titles about boundaries, recovery, healing. We called it the reset shelf. One day, as we were restocking pastries, she pulled out a tiny velvet box and handed it to me. I blinked. "Are you proposing to me?" She laughed. "No, not yet." "Open it." Inside was a key. "The apartment upstairs," she said. I figured maybe we could start there. I stared at her. "Do you want to move in together?" She nodded. "Unless you're scared." I wasn't. Not even a little. We moved in mid-November. Our place was modest. Bright kitchen, sunlight in the mornings, books on every surface, mugs everywhere. We cooked together, fought over playlist choices, worked late, fell asleep mid-conversation. It wasn't perfect. It was real, and that was better. September brought snow. The cafe windows fogged up each morning. We hosted a holiday event with a local shelter. Sarah organized everything: gift drives, donation bins, free coffee days. I watched her move through the space with purpose, kindness, confidence. One evening, as she handed a cup of hot cocoa to a woman in line, I realized something. I wasn't healing anymore. I was healed, and now I was building. Not because I had been broken, but because I had been brave. On New Year's Eve, exactly 1 year since the night Sophie kissed Henry on my car hood, Sarah and I stood on the rooftop of our apartment with mugs in our hands. The city below pulsed with life. Fireworks cracked in the distance. She leaned into me. 1 year ago, she whispered, "Do you regret it?" I looked out at the lights, the cafe signs below, the quiet hum of music inside. Not even a little. I said. She kissed my cheek. "Me neither." And as the clock struck midnight, I closed my eyes, not to forget, but to breathe in how far I had come. From betrayal to balance. From silence to strength. From being someone else's background character to writing my own story, one boundary, one receipt, one honest love at a time.